I think when it comes to a lot of the issues in the LARP world, most of them, certainly most of them that I've come across, can be solved relatively easily. Actually, I think by by a phrase I wish we'd had been using when I was running a game, and that phrase would have to be an adult. Because I'm genuinely stunned by how many people clearly are not. And don't get me wrong, I realise at the end of the day we're all dressing up and whacking each other with foam swords. So there's an element of being a kid, and that's cool. But when it really comes to the serious stuff, treating each other nicely, listening to someone's complaints, listening to the reply as well, which often isn't done. Being an adult will get you a long way. And I mean, another big thing that really pissed me off was safety. With safety, being an adult, and I mean that on a few fronts. So at the end, as I said, we're running around in metal and heavy equipment that if you're going to bash into someone, you might hurt them. So realise that and control yourself. But also, if you get bashed, try your best to be an adult as well. Did it really hurt? If it did, then absolutely, that's fine. If it was obviously more dangerous than it should have been and you were lucky and you weren't hurt, feel free to point it out, that's fine. But don't lose your shit. Don't go off in a paddy and need 3 people to hold you back from beating someone up in real life because they didn't pull their blow well enough or something like that. Be an adult and deal with the situation calmly, because 99 times out of 100 the person who hit you too hard did not mean to hit you too hard. So I want to apply that to language as well. I'll come back to safety. There's a thing I want to discuss, but with language, being an adult, if someone said something that you could consider as part of everyday language, but it could be phrased better, such as man up. So, yeah, you're all going off on a patrol, and someone's tired, and you go, "Oh, come on, man up, get going." Calm down, just calm down. The world didn't just end. It's okay. By all means, say, "Well, listen, I'd rather you didn't say it like that. How about gear up? We're going out on a patrol." Well, you know, something like that. That's fine. But if someone just said it, they almost certainly had no intent behind it. I can't imagine them trying to offend you. So keep that in mind. Also, I think being offended actually takes a bit of effort. You kind of go out your way to find something offensive. On the whole, I think I'll discuss that more in greater detail. I won't do that now. I think that is a discussion worth having. I think there's arguments to be made on a few fronts there, on both sides. But yeah, so with language, just be careful. I had one experience again at one of the larger fest games where I was just setting up my tent. Actually, we just arrived and we were setting up a tent, and I had for the first time a young person with me at this event. And they were very much looking forward to it. And overall, it went really well. They really enjoyed themselves. This isn't a criticism of the event. It was great. But when we were setting up, it was raining a bit, so we were trying to set up quite quick before it really started chucking it down, so we can get all our kit in the tent and stay dry. But someone who I think was helping tell cars where to go shouted something over to us, and I couldn't make out what they'd said. They were in a rain jacket. You can hear the rain coming down. They were quite far away. I just couldn't hear what they'd said. So I said to our young person with us if they could just run over and find out what they'd said. And it's like, run where? So, oh, over to that guy over there. Well, the person I'd been referring to happened to be transgender. I did not know this at the time. They had a raincoat on. It was very hard to see them at all. They sounded male. I assumed they were male, so I said, that guy over there. Well, they came to me, had a massive kickoff, explaining that the transgender had been very inappropriate, ignorant. I think there was quite a bit of colourful language. And more because I had a young person with me, I just apologised, said, sorry, I didn't realise, I, you know. And then they went, and then, you know, the more I thought about that, I thought, what an arsehole, what an absolute ass clown. I couldn't have possibly have known. I couldn't see visually to work that out. That was incredibly inappropriate. And having that kick off in front of a 9-year-old as well wasn't very good. But you know, fair enough. If I had have known, I wouldn't have said that guy over there. But I mean, they acted like I'd really come over and beat them with a stick. But if they'd have handled that as an adult, and I feel I did by just apologising, sorry, I didn't realise. Fair enough, fair play. But if they'd have handled it like an adult, I don't think they would have said anything. Or maybe they could have said, I'm a her, not a him. Or I'm not sure. You probably worded it a lot better than I just did then. But my point is, if you're an adult, there'll be a lot less confrontation with things like that. It does feel like a playground a lot of the time in LARP. And I mean, you get this from. I remember. I'm picking on the fest games here, but I suppose there's so many people at a fest game, you're kind of more likely to have these little run-ins. I just won. It was my second event at this place, and I just won the election to co-lead a nation. So I was very happy. Snuck off in my tent just before we in the icy area. Snuck off into the tent and had basically a quick drink. Just yay, won, feels good. Whew, now what do I do? I've got to plan a whole weekend for a nation now. This is a bit. Ooh. Anyway, a messenger comes over from an NPC messenger comes over to address the new leaders, and this person I'd had a falling out with online briefly about the asked for an opinion on something. I gave my opinion. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy for not having his opinion. He didn't appreciate anyone disagreeing with him, and I got blocked, and it was all a bit crazy actually. But anyway, it happened to be him who came into camp, saw it was me he had to talk to, told me to fuck off, and stormed away, and we missed a load of plot because of that, and not just me. All the other people in our group missed all that plot because he couldn't be an adult. There are several people I can think of off the top of my head I really, really dislike in LARP, but when I'm playing, I'm going to be an adult. I'll just deal with it. If I need to talk to them, I'll talk to them, and I'll talk to them in character, how my character would talk to their character. And there's quite a few people who I really don't get on with, who we've had great. In fact, I really do get on with their character, and it makes it a bit awkward actually, but it's interesting. And sometimes, in a way, you might be able to see that, yeah, you don't dislike this person as much as you thought you did. So sometimes it can be good, but I do think many people are completely incapable of being an adult in LARP. I'll briefly come back to the safety one because one of the ideas we'd had from seeing it done in Europe, and reenactment does it quite a lot, is the use of horses in LARP. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a big thing to do. There are dangers involved. You'd have to do very good risk assessments. You need people in charge of the horses who absolutely know what they're doing. They're very experienced, and we had all of that. And the horses, we had a lot, and still do, to be fair. And we suggested it, as we'd like to give this a go. But you know, give us some feedback. What do you think? And obviously, it was about 50-50 actually, that we had some people who'd never come to our lot before demanding to come to the game because of the horses. They thought this was an amazing idea. It's about time. It's great. So that was really good feedback for us, and we were enjoying that. But then we had people saying, "Well, that's too dangerous. I'm scared of horses," and that's completely understandable too. So this was awkward, because I think if 50% of people want it and 50% don't, you probably shouldn't do it. I'd even say if 70% wanted and 30 didn't, you probably still shouldn't do it, or be a bit careful with it, or at least come up with options for. We will be having it, but it will only be at this little section of the site. If you want to come over and help us judge if this is good or not, if you're confident enough to do that, please feel free. If you're not, don't worry, they'll come nowhere near you. You know, things like that. And we looked at organising all of that. But then we got the weird comments. People saying horses can't be trained to act well in a crowd. That's clearly untrue. They can, very, very well, in fact. I mean, you see police horses on a Saturday night out in a town centre, and they're fine. And there's people being massive amounts of dickheads that hopefully you wouldn't expect to see at a LARP, and the horses are stood there, and it's fine, because they're trained to do that. You see them in at football games outside the stadiums when people are geared up and ready to have a fist fight, and they're fine. But you know, I wouldn't go, look at that random horse, let's put it in the game and see what happens. We have the horse extensively trained. They would not be used in combat. You know, things like that. But then we got people commenting saying, well, as you've made your final decision to be using them in combat, I have to decline coming to the game. We've never said that. We have never, ever, ever said that. And then we had someone saying they're allergic to horse. If they come within 50 metres of horse, there's a good chance they'll die, which is clearly a lie. You might be allergic to the horse, but you're not going to die if you come within 50 metres of it. You need to live in a bubble if that's the case. But like, you know, I think a lot of the comments though were, even if you're keeping them out of a fight, well, what happens if someone jumps out of a bush and ambushes you while you're walking past with the horse, or something like that? And I think that's a fair point to make. What if someone does jump out of a bush and ambush you? But it's only a fair point in the same way as you're going to have actual chairs at the LARP site. But what if someone picks one up and smashes someone over the head with it? Well, they could, but I don't expect you to do it. And that's where, be an adult. Don't jump out at the horse. Don't try and scare it. Don't, as someone said, what if someone's walking with a flaming stick and runs towards the horse? Don't do those things. That's Darwin Award territory. Don't do it. So honestly, if I could change one big thing about LARP, it'd be that. It'd be an adult. So many situations would get solved instantly if people could just grow up for 5 minutes. Obviously, people still have their differences. People will still have disagreements, but handle them in a civilized manner, and you're fine. You don't need to throw your toys out the pram. Just chill out. Everything will be cool. Zen. Can't get enough of that sometimes. I'll go into much more detail about a lot of these topics at some point. I'll leave this one there for now, and I'll see you in my next video. I'll try and make them more interesting at some point as well. Stick with me for now.